Today I'm going to show you how you can use the power of Claude to build out an estimate and scope of work in JobTread. All right, let's paint a picture. You've been called to someone's house, they'd like you to come remodel. You walk in and they say they'd like their kitchen remodeled. As a contractor, you're typically taking notes and taking photos, or you might even be using a voice recording app on your device to take notes of all the things you see, and then you'll go back later and build out the estimate. Well, instead of doing that in the voice memo app, let's just use Claude and have that connected to JobTread to help build us out a scope of work. And I'm gonna go ahead and speak to Claude because A, that's kind of what the scenario we're replicating, and two, I can't type that fast. Ranch style home built in 1978. There is a 3-walled kitchen, roughly about 500 square feet. There's, call it 23, 24 linear feet of cabinetry, top and bottom. There's roughly 40 square feet of countertop. They want to completely gut this kitchen. So we want to tear down one wall, remove the 2 appliances, which are the range and the vent hood. We want to turn where that wall is into a large kitchen island. We'll add a new range hood, a new range. We'll add like a small wine fridge, and we're going to add cabinetry all underneath. And the rest of the kitchen, as mentioned, we'll tear out all the cabinetry. We'll install new high-end stuff. That's really where they want to put the bulk of their money. Think, really nice premium, but not crazy luxury. They want soft close hinges on everything. We'll need new paint and new tile. And I'm thinking, given my previous experience, this job probably works out to about 80 to 120 grand. Build me out a full scope of work, categorize it by each major scope of work, and add a few sentences describing what each scope of work is by major category. And build a job for Riley and Hannah Fisher customer. All right, that went pretty quick. So the only question it asked me following what I gave it was the address. I failed to provide that in my explanation. Totally makes sense. It then built out the whole scope of work, explaining what it's built for me in JobTread with the following couple sentence summary. If we jump into JobTread, this is your opportunity to review it and see if there's anything that sticks out to you. So for instance, I see that there's an assumption that they didn't add a sink. I failed to tell it needs to account for a sink, so I'll update that in a moment. I also see that there's a duplicate group up here. Probably got lost in a note somewhere, so I'll just go ahead and delete this real quick. And at this point, again, review the financials. Maybe you see something that seems too under or over budget. Account for that. Update things as you need to. But we'll go back to Claude, and I'll talk to it again and say, I forgot to account for the sink. We will be replacing the sink and the plumbing underneath and the faucet. They're gonna want a pretty nice looking sort of sink and faucet, so account for that. And then if you could further flourish a little bit more on the descriptions of scope of work, I want it to sound really detailed into what we're going over. So if you could update all the scopes of work to be 2 to 4 sentences long explaining what we're really accomplishing. All right, about 60 seconds later, I think we've got a pretty good looking scope of work, and we can send a quick bit. So you'll actually see that in Claude. Again, it tells me the updates it made. And if you go into JobTread, you'll see that all these scopes of work are just a little more polished. They're 2 to 4 sentences long. They look really nice. If you go into plumbing, you'll see that it's added things for the sink and faucet. You even see that it named one of the items a faucet allowance because I didn't technically specify what sink or faucet we were after, so it's just kind of assuming it's an allowance. We have the scope of work, and frankly, it just takes 3 clicks to generate a bid, so I don't think it's really useful to ask Claude to do it. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna click New Document. It'll be 3 clicks, so just click 1. You're gonna choose the document template that makes sense. I have one called, quite literally, Quick Bid. Call it Ballpark Estimate, whatever you want. Click 2, and create. You generated a quick bid with your logo, who you are, who you're sending this to, a header message in play, and all the details of that scope of work. Now, personally, I don't like showing all the financials unless you're like a cost plus builder. So I'm gonna hide all the numbers to begin with. And then I think I'm gonna simplify this even further and click top level over here. And that will just collapse all those groups into just the name and their description. And if you scroll down, you'll find there's my subtotal, tax, and total on this job, and all my legal that I've already had set up previously as a document template, and where I can collect a signature. At this point, all you gotta do is click send, and now it's in your customer's email. So we just use Claude and JobTread in about 10 minutes, produce a fully spec'd out scope of work and estimate. I, 3 clicks later, have that waiting in my customer's email inbox, for them to sign and approve. The power of JobTread and AI combined truly is crazy capable. I've already seen a lot of different use cases by our customer base, and I can't wait to see however many more they can come up with to make their day-to-days a whole heck of a lot better. Thanks for watching.